we find a very interesting Midrash. When we talk about Hanukkah and the background to Hanukkah, which is what we're coming now to the month of Kislev, which is the month where Hanukkah is where we celebrate the holiday of Hanukkah, which is what we're going to be focusing on today in class. As we talk about the holiday of Hanukkah, we find an interesting Midrash that talks about the beginnings of it all and why Hanukkah is when it is. Interesting Midrash. It says as follows. Rabbi Chanina teaches that the construction of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, in the desert, was really completed on the 25th day of Kislev. So let's build this out. Let's talk about the timeline. Jewish people left Egypt on the 15th day of Nisan, the first day of Passover. A week later, they crossed the Red Sea, Sea of Reeds, and they traveled through the desert to Sinai, where they received the Torah. On Shavuot, the next day after receiving the Torah, Moshe goes up on the mountain. He tells the people, I'm going to go up on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. I'll be back, and I'm going to learn the Torah from God. I'll come back down and teach you all the inside, all the deeper meanings of the Torah that I learned from God up on the mountain. As we know, the story goes, unfortunately, before Moshe came back down, the Jewish people got confused. They made the golden calf, and they served the golden calf, a great sin that they did at that time, before Moshe could come back down the mountain. Moshe came back down the mountain, he saw what they did, and he started a series of repentance. He went up the mountain 2 more times. He went up the mountain to plead for the people, to try to get God to forgive the Jewish people. So he went back up the mountain for 40 days, came back down, went up again for another 40 days, until finally God told him, you have been forgiven, the Jewish people are forgiven, it's a clean slate, we're starting over, I accept all your prayers, and the Jewish people are now forgiven. What day was this when the Jewish people were forgiven? This was the very first Yom Kippur. This is why Yom Kippur is a day of forgiveness, because that's the day that God forgave the Jewish people. So Moshe came back down the mountain. He told the people, God forgives you for your sin, and in order for God to travel with the Jewish people, to connect with the Jewish people, what we're going to do is we're going to build a Mishkan, we're going to build a tabernacle, a temporary Bet HaMikdash in the desert that is going to travel together with the people, and this will be the way that God is going to dwell amongst the people in the desert. This is all the timeline coming up to the building of the Mishkan. When Moshe told the Jewish people, we're now going to start a collection. We're going to start a new drive. We're going to go around and collecting all kinds of gold and silver and other precious items so that we can build the Mishkan. Well, the people showed up in droves. They came running with all kinds of goods, everything that was needed. In just a matter of days, the entire collection was complete. And this was the first and last time in Jewish history where the rabbi told the people, enough donations, we don't need your donations anymore. Never happened again. But sure enough, at that time, the Jewish people, they came up with all the donations, they came up with all the gold and silver. In just a few days, everything was collected, and they got to work. And they started putting together the Mishkan, everything that had to get done for the Mishkan. The work was done, again, in record times. There was no delays. There was no permitting that was needed. There was no, holdbacks. They were able to go and get the work done in just a few weeks or in a couple of months. It took the whole project from the start of the collection until the completion of the Mishkan was a total of 2.5 months. 2.5 months, 75 days, they got the whole project done. What is 2.5 months after Yom Kippur, the 10th day of Tishrei, which is when they received the instructions to build the Mishkan? 2.5 months later comes out the 25th day of Kislev, which, as we know today, is the first day of Hanukkah. So the Mishkan was actually completed construction on Hanukkah. That was the completion. That's when the Mishkan was ready. Now here's the problem. It was all completed. They did everything, as we said, in record time. They collected all the money. They did all the work. Everything is ready to go in just 2.5 months. And now they're ready for the big dedication. They're ready for the party. They're ready for the Mishkan to go up and for us to go and complete the project and actually have a Mishkan. But here's where the delay starts. Here's where Moshe says, not yet. We'll get to it soon. Don't worry. It's coming. It's coming. A day passes, a week, a month, 2 months, and the people are starting to get antsy. They said, Moshe, what's going on over here? They started to worry. Maybe, something broke. Maybe you lost something. What's going on? Why don't we get the Mishkan up and running? It's all ready. We did everything we needed to do. Let's do it. Let's get the Mishkan running. Let's start bringing God to the people. But Moshe kept saying, not yet, not yet. Why not yet? The answer is because God told him not yet. God said it's not time yet. Because the truth is, the Jewish people did everything they had to do. They prepared themselves physically by collecting and building the Mishkan. They prepared themselves spiritually. They were ready for the Mishkan. They did everything they had to do. They were ready to get started. It was all done on their part. But takes two to tango. God has a part of this too. And God wasn't ready yet. What does it mean God wasn't ready? God, so to speak, had to be in the mood. God said it has to be at the right time. We don't just dedicate the Mishkan just like that. It has to be at the right time for such a special moment. It has to be a special moment in time. And that time is not yet. When is that time going to be? That time is going to be the month of Nisan. What's special about the month of Nisan? Besides for the fact that Passover is the month of Nisan, what else is special about the month of Nisan? Nisan is the month when Yitzchak, our forefather Isaac, was born. How do we know that Yitzchak was born in the month of Nisan? Well, let's look at the Torah portion from just a couple of weeks ago. When the angels came, as we know, the three angels came to visit Abraham and Sarah in the desert. Abraham had a Brit, and God was visiting with Abraham, when along came three visitors, and Abraham went to take care of them. He gave them food and drink and took care of all their needs. And then they said, the truth is, we actually came to give you a message, and our message is that 1 year from today, Sarah is going to give birth to a boy. Exactly 1 year later. Now, when did this happen? When did this happen, this story where they said we're going to come back 1 year later? Well, if you look at the details of the story, it says that Abraham baked for his visitors 3 cakes. What kind of cakes? Those cakes were matzahs. As we see as the story continues, after they left Abraham, they went to visit Lot, Abraham's nephew. And there, again, Lot took them in and he took care of his guest. And it says that he gave his guest, there it says, the first time in the Torah we have the word, it says that he gave them matzah. He gave matzah to the guest. When do we eat matzah? We eat matzah on Passover, on Pesach. When, unless you're traveling in small town USA, you can always find some matzah, right? You're looking for something kosher, you can always go to the kosher aisle and buy some matzah. In those days, the only time to eat matzah was Passover. And so we see Abraham and Lot were giving out matzah on this day, which was 1 year before Yitzchak was born. Obviously, Yitzchak was born on the first day of Passover. And so we know what month was Yitzchak born? Yitzchak was born in the month of Nisan, which is the month of Passover. And so God said to Moshe, he said, when are we going to dedicate the temple? When is a good time? When am I in the mood for such a great moment for a dedication? At a time when I'm celebrating the birthday, the birth month of Yitzchak, of our great forefather Yitzchak, Isaac, who was born in the month of Nisan. And so this is how it was. Again, the Jewish people quickly finished the project. They had the Mishkan ready. Everything was ready to go on the 25th day of Kislev. But God pushed them off until the month of Nisan, which is when the actual dedication took place on the first day of the month of Nisan. Now the problem is, Kislev wasn't very happy. The month of Kislev didn't feel right. Say, hey, excuse me, what about me? What am I, chopped liver? What about me? Why don't I get this special celebration? What did I do to lose out? It was on the 25th day of Kislev. It was in my month when the Mishkan was completed. The dedication should have happened right away in my month. Why did I get pushed away? Why did I lose out from getting the dedication in my month? Kislev was offended. Now you may ask, how can Kislev get offended? You ever heard of a month getting offended? Not a person. But in the Torah, we actually find this concept in other places as well. We find that inanimate objects can become offended. I'll give you a couple of examples. Number one, we have every Shabbat. Every Shabbat, when we make Kiddush, we have challah and we have wine. We take the challah, we put it on the table, and we cover the challah with a cover, and then we take a cup of wine and we make Kiddush to welcome Shabbat. Right? Why do we cover the challah when we make Kiddush? Anybody ever thought about it? What's the purpose of covering the challah? The answer is that generally speaking, when we eat a meal, there is an order. In Jewish law, there's an order to eating a meal. If we're having bread and other foods, we start with the bread. Bread comes first. After you eat your bread, you can eat other stuff too. So bread always comes first before wine. Now here, what are we doing? We're starting the meal. The first thing we do is we make Kiddush on a cup of wine, and only later do we eat the challah. The challah says, hey, what's going on over here? The challah gets offended. The challah feels like, why am I suddenly being pushed aside? Why does the wine go ahead of me today? Therefore, because we don't want to embarrass the challah, we cover him. We put something on top of the challah to cover it up so that it doesn't see that the wine is being drunk first. And so we see that a challah, an inanimate object, a piece of bread, can get offended. Another example, when they built the Mishkan, they built all different parts of the Mishkan. One of the things they built was an altar. Built two altars. One of the altars was very big, was very high. They had to get to the top. How do you get to the top of a high object? So usually what you do is you put a staircase. That's how you get to a higher level. But the Torah says that when you build when you build this ark, when you build the Mizbeach, do not make steps. Rather, what should you do? Make a ramp. And that's what they did. They had a big ramp going up to the top of the Mizbeach, of the altar. There was no steps. Why couldn't they make steps? What's wrong with steps? So the Torah says that when you make steps, you lift up your legs. And when you lift up your legs, the Kohanim were wearing robes. Now, the truth is they're wearing pants under their robes, but they were wearing robes. And so when they lifted up their feet to take a step, the robes would kind of open up, and this would be embarrassing for the stones of the steps that they were going up. As they're going up the steps, it embarrasses the steps that they have to kind of see the bottom of the robes of the Kohanim, of the priests. Therefore, the Torah tells us, in order to not embarrass the stones that make up these steps, don't make them steps, make them a ramp, and therefore the Kohen won't have to take these big steps. So once again, we see an inanimate object. It's a stone. Yet, a stone has no feelings, yet we're careful to not embarrass the stones of the altar. So we see that inanimate objects can be offended. And so the month of Kislev became offended. It became embarrassed that it was being left out, that it was losing out on the dedication of the Mishkan. And so God said, you know what? You're right. You're going to get your day too. I am going to repay you. Not today, not tomorrow, not for many years. In 1,000 years. 1,000 years is going to be a new dedication of the temple. And when that new dedication of the temple happens, what day is it going to happen on? It is going to happen on the 25th day of Kislev, on the day that they completed the Mishkan, on the day that should have been the dedication of the Mishkan. You're going to get your day, not this time, it's not next time, but eventually it's going to be your day, your way of celebrating the dedication of the Mishkan, of the Bet HaMikdash, on the 25th day of Kislev. And this is what happened on Chanukah. On the 25th day of Kislev, the Jewish people, the Maccabees, they completed their war against the Assyrian Greeks. They came back to the temple, the Bet HaMikdash, they cleaned it up, they rededicated it, and they lit the menorah, which is why they found the oil, they lit the menorah, it lasted for 8 days, and that's why today we celebrate Chanukah. Chanukah, the word Chanukah means a dedication, that they dedicated the temple, they rededicated the temple on that day, on the 25th day of Kislev. So the Rabbi explains, from the human standpoint, the Mishkan could have been built on the it could have been dedicated on the 25th day of Kislev. As we said, the work was all done. Everything was ready from the human perspective. It was only from the divine perspective, from God's perspective, that it wasn't ready yet. God wasn't ready yet. God needed to be prepared on his end for the dedication, for the right moment to dedicate the new temple, this new Mishkan in the desert. But the Rebbe points out something interesting. We don't say that the 25th day of Kislev became offended. What did we say became offended? The month of Kislev. What does the whole month have to do with the 25th day of the month? Let's say today is day number 12, right? The Mishkan wasn't dedicated until the Mishkan wasn't completed until the 25th day, which is the end of the month. Almost the end of the month. What complaint does the 12th day have that you didn't dedicate on the 25th day? You weren't have gotten it anyway. You were too early anyway. On the 12th, the Mishkan was not ready yet. Mishkan was not ready until the 25th day. So what does the rest of the month have to do with this? The only part of the month that can be offended is the 25th and on, maybe. But it's really the end of the month. It's not the rest of the month. So why do we say Kislev was offended? We should have said the 25th day of Kislev was offended. And so the Rebbe says, from the fact that it says Kislev was offended, it shows that the entire month of Kislev is connected with the same themes of Chanukah, of rededication, of light, of renewal, of all the things that we talk about for the 25th day of Kislev are all connected to the entire month of Kislev, not just the 25th day of Kislev. Just like the whole month lost out, and the whole month received Chanukah as its compensation. Chanukah was the way of giving back for what it lost out. That means that these concepts of dedication and Chanukah apply to the entire month of Kislev. So Chanukah expresses the essence of the entire month of Kislev, not just the holiday of Chanukah, rather it expresses the entire month of Kislev within it. So Chanukah is not just that it happens to be in the month of Kislev, rather it reveals what Kislev is all about. Chanukah is the essence of Kislev. Kislev is the essence of Chanukah. They are one and the same, and they're always connected. Another very interesting thing we see when we talk about the month of, when we talk about this story of Kislev getting offended, and therefore God gave it a compensation, God gave it Chanukah, we see how important it is to not offend somebody. Here we are talking about a month. A month doesn't have any real feelings. As much as we talk about not offending and being, come on, it's a month. It's not a person. Not the same as a human being. So if we're so concerned about offending, about hurting a month, how much more so do we have to be careful about offending another person? How much more so do we have to be sensitive to make sure that another person, our friend, doesn't get offended? Even if the person doesn't say that they're hurt. They seem to not care that happened. It's something small, it's a big deal. Yet, we see from the fact that God made sure to provide a compensation for the month of Kislev, that we certainly have to make sure to protect the dignity of another person. And we have to do whatever we can to make sure to not offend another person in any situation. It's so important that we do this. So what is the theme of Hanukkah? What is Hanukkah all about? Hanukkah is about dedication. As we said, the word Hanukkah means a dedication. Dedication means something new. You don't dedicate an old thing. You dedicate something new. You inaugurate a new project, not an old project, not something that's already, has been already. You inaugurate a new thing, something that's grand, something that's the next level, the next step. And so we see from here that Hanukkah, as much as Hanukkah was a rededication, because just to share, I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the timeline. So let me give you the timeline a little bit, not just the general idea. We had first in the desert, we mentioned we had the Mishkan. We had the temporary tabernacle, the temporary Bet HaMikdash that traveled with the Jewish people in the desert. When they came to the land of Israel, they had the Mishkan went through several different places and several different styles over the years. For hundreds of years, they had the Mishkan in the land of Israel. It was actually a permanent building. They built a building out of stones, but it was still, they had no roof. The roof was covered with the tapestries of the Mishkan. It was still a Mishkan and not a Bet HaMikdash. And this went on for hundreds of years until eventually King David, David HaMelech, he established that the Bet HaMikdash is going to be built in Jerusalem. He prepared the plans for it. And then after he passed away, his son Shlomo went about building and dedicating the first Bet HaMikdash in Jerusalem. After many years, the first Bet HaMikdash was destroyed. The Jewish people went to exile for 70 years. After 70 years, they came back, and under King Cyrus, they built the second Bet HaMikdash. And again, this went on for many years until we had the story of Hanukkah. During the time of the second Bet HaMikdash, the Assyrian Greeks conquered Israel, and they didn't destroy the temple. They did not destroy the Bet HaMikdash. Rather, they destroyed the purity of the Bet HaMikdash. They defiled it. They brought their idols and they brought their defilement into the temple, but they didn't destroy it. And then we had the story of Hanukkah where the Maccabees fought back against the Greeks, against the Assyrian Greeks, and they reconquered Jerusalem. They reconquered the temple, and they cleaned it out. They took out all the idols, and they rededicated the temple on the 25th day of Kislev, which is what we celebrate on Hanukkah. So this is not a new temple. This was a continuation of the second temple that's already been around for hundreds of years. It's a rededication, yet we still refer to it as a dedication, as something new, because it's a new level. Every time we're dedicating something, it's something new. We're building something new. So you had the first Mishkan. That was the first time ever. You had the Bet HaMikdash, the first Bet HaMikdash. This was a permanent home, something special. Then we have the second Bet HaMikdash. The second Bet HaMikdash took it to the next level, because the second Bet HaMikdash carried a holiness for all time. First Bet HaMikdash, after it was destroyed, it didn't leave the same holiness in the spot of the Bet HaMikdash. But the second Bet HaMikdash, this holiness goes on forever. Hanukkah brought something new as well. Hanukkah brought a new level of holiness to the Bet HaMikdash, to the story of the Bet HaMikdash. Because if you look at the facts, when we dedicated the Mishkan, there's no continued celebration. There's nothing that continues from that moment till today. We do commemorate it in a slight way by reading from the Nasi. Small, I'm not going to get into it now. It's a small commemoration that we do, but it's not celebrated in the same way. And there's nothing that continues from then. The first Bet HaMikdash, again, it was an amazing celebration. We'll talk about it in just a moment. Yet, it does not continue till today. Same with the second Bet HaMikdash. Yet with Hanukkah, they lit the menorah on Hanukkah, and those lights of the menorah of Hanukkah continue until today. Every year on Hanukkah, we all light a menorah. The light of the menorah shines from the day of the dedication of the temple of Hanukkah until today. This is a new level of dedication that continued from then until today. And so Hanukkah is something new. It's another level of dedication. It's not just a rededication. It's like a whole new beginning. Now, every time we dedicate with tremendous joy. A dedication is a very joyous occasion. And we can look and see how each time they dedicated, these 4 times that we mentioned, the Mishkan, the first Bet HaMikdash, second Bet HaMikdash, and Chanukah, each time we find tremendous celebration. Let's start with the Mishkan, the first dedication that they did in the desert. And here it talks about when they dedicated. They established that every day of the dedication was going to go on for 12 days. Every day of those 12 days, one tribe is going to dedicate and bring the sacrifices on that day. And they brought special sacrifices that were unique to that time, that were never brought again in history. They were only brought at that time. And they brought gold and silver, and it was a wonderful celebration that went on for 12 days of the dedication of the temple, of the Mishkan, the temporary temple. When it came the time of the first temple celebration, when King Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech, built the first temple, it talks there let's read from the Kings 1. Solomon assembled the elders of Israel, all the heads of the tribes, the princes of the fathers' houses of the children of Israel, to King Solomon in Jerusalem, to bring up the ark of the covenant of God from the city of David, which is Zion. All the men of Israel assembled before King Solomon at the festival in the month of Etanim, the 7th month. All the elders of Israel came, and the priests took up the ark. They brought up the ark of God, the tent of meeting, and all the sacred vessels that were in the tent. The priests and the Levites carried them. King Solomon and the entire congregation of Israel who were assembled with him before the ark were sacrificing sheep and oxen in such great numbers that they could not be counted. Can you imagine? They brought so many sacrifices, they couldn't even count them. And Solomon slaughtered the peace offerings, and he brought to God 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. With this, the king and all the children of Israel inaugurated the temple of God. Now Solomon observed the feast at that time, and all Israel with him, a vast assembly, from the entrance of Hamas to the brook of Egypt, before God for 7 days and 7 days, 14 days in total. It was a huge celebration. In fact, the celebration was so big that one of the days of that 7-day celebration fell out on Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, we can't celebrate. Yom Kippur, we sit and fast and we pray. But that year, they did not fast. That year, Yom Kippur was part of the celebration. There was no fasting that year, Yom Kippur, and it was fine. It was perfectly fine. God praised them for that. That's how great the celebration was, that it superseded Yom Kippur, holiest day of the year. An unprecedented event in history. We don't see that any other time. We also find a similar idea by the second temple, by the dedication of the second temple. This is from the book of Ezra. The builders laid the foundation of the temple of God, and they stationed the priests in their attire with trumpets, and the Levites, the sons of Asaph, with cymbals, to praise God through David, king of Israel. They sang aloud with praise and thanksgiving to God, for he is good, and his kindness endures forever over Israel. The entire people shouted with a great shout of praise to God, because the foundation of the house of God was laid. Many of the priests, Levites, and heads of the families, elderly men who had seen the first temple standing in its place, were weeping loudly as they saw the temple with their own eyes, while many others shouted for joy. The people could not distinguish the sound of the joyful shout from the sound of the people weeping, for the people shouted loudly, and the sounds was heard from afar. So again, it was a beautiful, wonderful, joyous celebration of the temple at that time. And when we look at the temple dedication in the times of the Chashmonaim, in the times of Chanukah, we find once again, we find a joyous celebration. Judah, son of Matthias, the high priest, and all the faithful assembly who were with him came to Jerusalem. They tore down all the altars from the Gentiles that the Gentiles had built, purified the house from the idols of the Gentiles, built a new altar, brought, brought offerings on it, and arranged the wood. They could not find holy fire, so they cried out to God and called upon him. Fire came forth from the stones of the altar. They arranged the wood on it and offered their sacrifice. The fire remained on the altar until the third division of the priests completed their service. They celebrated the dedication of the altar on the 25th of Cheshvan, of Kislev, that's a mistake, placed the showbread on the table of God, lit the lamps of the menorah, and praised God with the recitation of Hallel for 8 days. This, by the way, reading is from Josephus. This is Josephus's telling over of the celebrations that took place at that time. And so we see that dedication is a very happy, a very joyous, special occasion that took place for each one of these different dedications. Well, we don't have a temple to dedicate. Unfortunately, not yet. Very soon, Bezrat Hashem. We do not have a temple to dedicate, yet we also can have a certain aspect of dedication. Because every home, every one of our homes where we live is like a mini temple. Today, we don't have a Bet HaMikdash, but the Torah tells us, Va'asuli Mikdash v'shachanti betocham. Build me a Mishkan, a Mikdash, and I will dwell within them. What does within them mean? It means within every one of us. In our hearts, in our lives, in our souls, God is dwelling within us. And so every one of our homes is like a mini Mishkan, a mini temple, a mini Bet HaMikdash that is going on within our own homes. Therefore, when we move into a new home, it's important that we dedicate that new home, that we make a celebration, a dedication, just like the times of the temple. We dedicate our homes. We dedicate our homes to make it a place of godliness. How do we do that? By sharing Torah and prayers and the celebration in the home that we move in at that time. And just like by the Mishkan or by the Bet HaMikdash, it was done with joy. So too, when we move into a new home, we have to make a joyful celebration. There's a very interesting letter that we find written by the Chassam Sofer. The Chassam Sofer was was a great rabbi who lived in the late 18th, early 19th century. He was a rabbi in Bratislava, Slovakia. And there's an interesting letter where somebody asked him a question. And the question was as follows. I hear that there's a custom that people have, that when they move into a new home, because they don't want that ayin hara, they don't want the evil eye, what they do is, there's a kind of a tradition that people have, that if you move into a new home, it can bring out this evil eye, that it can cause that someone should pass away, somebody should die in this home, which is, of course, not a good thing. Nobody wants that. And so in order to take away this evil eye, what people do is before moving into a new home, they take a rooster and a hen, bring it into the home, and in that home they slaughter the rooster and the hen, and this takes away this ayin hara, this evil eye from the home, which can bring about negative things, somebody dying in the home. And so this person is writing a letter to the Chassam Sofer saying, this seems to me to be a very odd tradition. Doesn't sound very Jewish. Doesn't sound like a Jewish thing to bring a rooster and a hen into the home and they should live there and slaughter there. It doesn't sound like a Jewish tradition. It sounds like idol worship. Not something we would do. And so he's asking this great rabbi, can you verify, is this an appropriate custom? Is this an appropriate minhag that we should do? Or do you agree with me that it's not appropriate, it's not a Jewish thing? So the Chassam Sofer responded, he says that if you look in all the early sources, you look in the Torah, in the Talmud, you look in the early rabbis' writings, we see no mention of this anywhere. This concept is not mentioned anywhere. And so he says, I have a better idea than to take this rooster in the hand and bring it into the home and slaughter it. Better than doing any of that is to do a Chanukat Habayit, to do a dedication of your home. Invite people into your home where you study some Torah, do some prayers where you bring out joy and celebration, and this will remove any evil eye that comes to the home, and everything's going to be great. You don't have to do any other interesting customs with roosters or any of that stuff. You can have a celebration, a Chanukah Habayit. And so we see here a clear source from a great leader of a previous generation telling us about this concept of celebrating a Chanukah Habayit, the dedication of our homes. We see this as well with Chabad Rebbes. From the very first Chabad Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, who founded Chabad, he also, when he dedicated his home, he did a celebration, a dedication of the new home. I just lost my place here. Okay. So this is all a very nice, interesting story, an interesting thesis about celebration and about Kislev being offended, and therefore they got Chanukah. It's all very nice. But Torah is about a lesson for us. There has to be something for me, a takeaway for me, that I learn what I should get out of this, right? What's the message for me from this whole discussion? And so the answer is that when it comes Kislev, when it comes the month of Kislev, which we said, the month of Kislev is not just a month where Chanukah takes place. Rather, the theme of Kislev is the theme of Chanukah. They're one and the same. The whole month of Kislev is permeated by the theme of Chanukah. What is the theme of Chanukah? The theme of Chanukah is to rebuild, to renew our connection to Torah and mitzvot, to rededicate ourselves to the Torah and mitzvot, to fulfill God's desire to create a world, a dwelling place where God feels comfortable, where God feels at home, to make a Chanukah Habayit, to rededicate this world for God, make it a home for God, a place where God feels welcome. That is what Chanukah is all about, and that's what the month of Kislev is all about. To go out and dedicate the world, make the world a new, fresh, clean place for God to come and celebrate, a place where he can live and be happy. And we have to do this in a way of joy. As we said, it's all about the dedication has to be done with joy. And so when we dedicate God's house, we have to do it with joy as well. And it can't just be the same old. Because as we said, a dedication is something new. It has to be something new. And so our Torah observance, our mitzvot observance that we do to dedicate this home, this world for God, is not just to do the same old that we've been doing until now. Torah mitzvot have been around for thousands of years. What's new about it? It's the same thing again and again. What's new is how we dedicate ourselves to it. If we can do Torah mitzvot the same way, like it's just been done, and just say, like, I'm just following and I'm following the rules. I'm doing the steps that I was told to do. I'm following the instructions. Or we can put ourselves to it and add a whole new energy to it and make it real, make it sincere, make it authentic, but fresh. Keep the Torah alive in a fresh way. Dedicate ourselves with it in a fresh, renewed way. That is a true dedication. That makes it something new. That is something that we can dedicate for God, and God can feel at home in this world. In closing, I want to mention some of the things that are done, some of the ways that we celebrate a home dedication. So list of some things that we do when we dedicate a home. So number one, there's an old Jewish custom when you move into a new home to bring in some bread and salt. Not quite sure what the source of it is, but this is an old custom to bring bread and salt into the home. In addition to this, the Rebbe says it is our custom to also bring in some Jewish books. Bring some Sfarim, some holy books into the home when you move in. Which these books include a Siddur, a prayer book, a Chumash, which is the Torah, a Tehillim, Psalms, and a Tanya. bring these books into your home, and this way you establish this home as a home of Torah and a home for God. When it comes to mezuzot, the technical law is that you don't put up a mezuzah until you've been living in the home for 30 days. That's what the law says. But we want more than that. We don't want to wait 30 days before we put up a mezuzah. We don't want to be in the home for 30 days without a mezuzah. So therefore, our custom is to do as follows. Right when we moved into the home, immediately we take a mezuzah, we put it up on the front door. We hang up a mezuzah right away. But being that you have to wait 30 days, you can't make a blessing. Because you're not yet obligated to have a mezuzah. So you put up the mezuzah without a blessing. Now, when it comes 30 days, now you're required to have a mezuzah. But now you can't make a blessing because the mezuzah is up already. You're a catch-22, right? So what do? After 30 days, you take down the mezuzah. You can't take down the mezuzah just because. You take it down to go get it checked. You send it to the sofer, to the rabbi to make sure it's kosher. And then you put up a new mezuzah, a better mezuzah, an even nicer one than the first one. And then you make a blessing when you put up that new, nicer mezuzah. So this is what we do. When we move in the home, we put up a mezuzah right away. After 30 days, we take it down, put up a newer, nicer, special mezuzah. We make a blessing on it. And this way we can do both. We can have the mezuzah right away, and we can also do a blessing on the mezuzah on our home. In addition to this, any other mezuzot we're putting up in the house, we make sure to check all those mezuzot as well, make sure they're all kosher. We make sure to bring a charity box into our home. We want our home to be a place of good values. Part of that is having a charity box in the home. And then finally, we have a Hasidic gathering. We invite people to come over and celebrate together, share some stories, share some Torah, and maybe say a prayer together, say some Tehillim, make it a place of Torah celebrations, a place where we can celebrate together. And this makes it a Jewish home, and this makes it a home of our values, a home where we can make ourselves feel welcome and help God feel welcome. And in this way, we can translate that to making God feel welcome in the entire world around us. So this is the idea. This is a lesson we bring from the month of Kislev. That the Torah, that the Mishkan dedication was not done in the month of Kislev, yet God made sure that the Hanukkah dedication was done in the month of Kislev. And we learn all about dedications. We learn all about making this world a place for God, a place that's dedicated to godliness. And for us, as we approach the days of Kislev, which, by the way, the first day, I don't know if I mentioned this before, Kislev begins this Friday. So it's actually in 24 hours, because it starts Thursday night. Thursday night, in less than 24 hours, is going to be the beginning of the month of Kislev. And so as we enter the month of Kislev, the month of Hanukkah, these are days of special spiritual blessings. It's a time to renew our service to God, our service to Torah mitzvot. And so we have a special power from God to use these days to renew our connection with God, with enthusiasm, with joy, and to completely dedicate ourselves to godliness. So let's grab this opportunity. Let's make the most of it. Let's use this month of dedication as a month of celebration, and till we get to the ultimate celebration with the revelation of Mashiach and the building of the third temple, dedication of the third temple in Jerusalem. May it happen speedily in our days. Amen. Any questions, thoughts, or comments? Mark, you look like you have a thought.
I was thinking, were you saying that matzah existed before the Exodus?
Great question. That was a good catch. So let me explain quickly. The Torah, as we know, wasn't given until Mount Sinai, right? Many, many years later, hundreds of years later. However, it says that the Avot, our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, although the Torah was not yet given, they kept the entire Torah, all of its laws and customs, even though the Torah wasn't given yet. They had godly revelation. They had Ruach HaKodesh, divine sense, a divine understanding of things, and therefore they knew the Torah that was coming, and they celebrated events that didn't happen yet, right? Because Pesach was celebrating the exodus from Egypt. They didn't go to Egypt yet, right? They didn't go to Egypt for hundreds of years. Yet they already celebrated because they knew that this day is a day of celebration for the Jewish people, for their children many, many years from now, which, by the way, their children weren't even born yet. Yitzchak wasn't even alive yet, right? Yitzchak wasn't born for another year. And yet, knowing that this was an eventual practice of the Jewish people, Abraham already kept all those practices. So yes, Abraham ate matzah on Pesach even before there was a Pesach.
Okay.
It's a very interesting concept, and it's you find this in other places as well. This idea, yeah.
It's very science fiction.
Yes, exactly. But
Past,
it's
present, and
reality, though. So
future.
that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for joining. We'll hopefully we'll see you tomorrow at the Mashiach Minute, and on Sunday for our Tanya class. Look forward to seeing you all there.